Requesting connection. Established. Encrypted. We're live. The show you've been asking for. Advice, technology, and community. Linux first, all others second. This is Ask Noah.
Live from Multispeed Technologies, the Ask Noah show starts right now. This is the show where we came to do all the things on Linux they said couldn't be done and take your questions on how to do the same. The phone lines are open this hour. To be a part of the program, it is a free call, 1-855-450-NOAH. That's 1-855-450-6624, or send an email to live@asknoahshow.com. My name is Noah Chalaya. I am your host. Delighted to be here with you as another episode of the Ask Noah show kicks off this hour. Joining me is my co-host, Mr. Steve Ovens. Welcome in, sir.
Good evening, Noah. How are you doing tonight?
I'm great, sir. It is a fantastic night, as they say. Would you like to get into some feedback?
Let's do it.
Our first piece of feedback comes in from Bloomstrong. Bloomstrong writes in and says, "Hi, Noah and Steve. Regarding Arch Linux keyring issue that you had with the Pine Tab 2. I have had the exact same issue with Arch Linux LXC images on Proxmox. That included the keyring that is too old to trust the current keyring, and so it cannot be updated. I've also found that it's very easy to work around this issue. In the bottom of etsy/pacman.conf, you'll find a sig level equals optional, trust all. Include this under core and extra, and you can install whatever you want. So after the update of keyring, pacman, tac, capital S, lowercase y, Arch Linux-keyring, you'll likely need to confirm each new key, but after that, you can remove the sig level optional trust all from core and extra and finish with the updates with pacman, tac, capital S, lowercase y, u. This worked for getting 2022 and 2021 images up to date last month. Thanks for your time, Bloomstrong." So, Steve, this is actually a really cool little piece of advice, a little tidbit. Any downsides you see?
I mean, if you forget to turn it off, it removes the benefits of the package signing in Arch. So, I mean, don't leave it off.
So, part of me thinks I get to the point that I say to myself, well, here's the deal. If I'm going to, once I have to resort to things like turning off signatures and stuff like that, then I feel like I get a little nervous.
Although, if it's just the Arch Linux keyring, you could, in theory, use Pacman to do a download only and make sure that it has the cryptographic signing that you expect it to have. Then turn it off and just use pacman-u to install the package you just downloaded and verified yourself. Then you go back into your Etsy pacman.conf and turn back on the key signing.
Very good. So we'll have all of that in the show notes of podcast.asknoahshow.com. You can check it out there. Our second email comes in from John. John writes in and says, "Hi, Noah and Steve. In the morning, our church is looking to upgrade its presentation and streaming PC. I want to put forward some open source options if possible. We're currently running Easy Worship, PowerPoint, and streaming to YouTube via Chrome. Cameras attached via Sling Studio, which is operated from an iPad. The video stream comes to the PC over Wi-Fi from Sling Studio. On the softer side, I've started to look into OpenLP for the Service Manager, LibreOffice Impress for the PowerPoint, and Whimsy World OBS Studio Portable for the YouTube plugin." And he gives a link to it. For the live streaming, upgrading the PC and networking is definitely required. What are your thoughts? Any recommendations? So, Steve, off the bat, do you have anything that you would throw out there for John?
Well, the first thing that jumped out at me is the video streams are coming in over Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
That would be something I would be looking to address fairly short order, I would think. Maybe it doesn't cause you problems, but to me, the video stream needs to be over a wired connection, just because of the large amount of packets that happen during a video broadcast, and getting them out of order and having them resent causes those little jags, like when you get the distortion in your video from time to time when that happens. And so you have a higher likelihood of having those problems over Wi-Fi just because, I don't know, someone turned on a microwave near the access point.
So I would start with this. So there's a lot of things that you could do here, and there's different solutions for every budget. So I guess I would keep that. I would park that in the back of my head. But if I were working with the church and we were going from scratch. So the first thing is you talk about OpenLP. OpenLP will work, and it is an open source piece of software, and it's fine. And so if it meets your needs, by all means, I would highly recommend you take a look at the app called FreeShow. FreeShow is designed against the proprietary alternative ProPresenter. And if I do say so myself, they have apps. It's as if somebody sat down in front of the UI from ProPresenter and went, how do we make an open source clone of this piece of software? And that's what FreeShow is. The advantage there is the vast majority of your church projectionists, or the people that are coming in to quote unquote do slides, right? Those people are going to probably be familiar with ProPresenter, or if they've worked in other churches, they might have some familiarity with ProPresenter. And so I would definitely check out FreeShow. And the second thing is, so you talk about, as Steve pointed out, bringing your video stream in via Wi-Fi, not really super ideal. I get it, different budgets for different places and different setups work. And so if you've got something that works, by all means, leave that in production until you find a better way. But what I would encourage you to do in the strongest possible way, instead of bringing in the video stream via Wi-Fi and via a proprietary contraption, what I would do is I would either bring it in via SDI PCI capture, HDMI PCI capture, or you could use a dedicated USB bus PCI card and then bring them in via USB capture, as long as you're putting each separate USB stream on a separate USB bus. And for more information, we'll have a previous episode linked. We kind of went over the capture side of it in that episode, so I would encourage you to go back and listen to that. And there's some links in the show notes there for you as well. As far as actually getting in and out, so the advantage of doing that and how this process all kind of scales together. So if you start with an OBS system, and let's say you have a quad SDI capture card, so now you can take 4 video sources in. So camera, that's one source. FreeShow, that becomes a second source. So you can have a second machine that's doing FreeShow and have the output of that feed a couple of things. You can either feed a Blackmagic matrix, which will allow you to send specific sources up to your screens, as well as hit your output stream, as well as when you're doing FreeShow, you can have a slide. So for example, during the worship service, you might want the words to be up on the projector. But then once the pastor starts speaking, maybe you don't want the words from OpenLP on there. You want the projector, the camera for the pastor. This is known as IMAG, or image magnification. And so when you're doing IMAG to where you have a camera that is pulling something from the room and then putting it up on the screen, that's where OBS is going to become your friend, and an SDI matrix is going to become your friend, because you'll be able to dynamically choose, what do I want sent to different places. The other thing that FreeShow is going to get you that is hugely beneficial is a confidence monitor. And essentially, a confidence monitor is a screen that you'd put at the back of the worship center, and the idea being that the person on stage can watch that back confidence monitor and they get real-time notes of what's happening, as well as it will show slides corresponding to what is on the main screen. So the person scrolling through slides doesn't have to pay attention to making sure that so-and-so's notes or so-and-so's chords or so-and-so whatever. They're just clicking through, and the confidence monitor is going to change with what's at the front of the church. So have OBS, bring all the sources in, allow OBS to do all the switching. Well, then you run into a new issue. And the new issue is, well, how do you effectively switch scenes in OBS? And there's a fantastic little device out there called the Stream Deck. And the Stream Deck is a very customizable device made by a company called Elgato. And Elgato makes the Stream Deck that has a number of different buttons, and you can assign those buttons. It's essentially a backed LED screen, and it has buttons, and you can choose what you want to be displayed behind each button. So you can have an image, you can have text, you can have color, and then you can assign those buttons using something called BitFocus Companion. BitFocus Companion allows you to assign buttons from the Stream Deck to actions inside of OBS. And so you have the opportunity to then switch different scenes and run back and forth and say, like, I want scene 1 to go, I want scene 2, scene 3, scene 4, camera, FreeShow, whichever. You pick that on the Stream Deck, and it will automatically do all the switching for you up on the screen. Better yet, you can set OBS up to do something called studio mode. And what that will allow you to do is you can actually have two displays. One is preview and one is program. So you can call something up in, like you can call free show up. Yep, that looks the way I want it. Okay. And then you can hit either a hard cut and go straight over into program. So it's going out over the stream and going up on your screens in the church. Or you can do like a slow fade, push it up. Oh, actually, that's not the right scene. That's not what I wanted. I want this camera instead. Okay, well, you can switch that, make that mistake in preview where only you and the tech team can see it. Then when you're ready, hit the button, send it out over the air. So those projects together are going to allow you to do are going to allow you to put together a really professional look to your church. You pair that with something like Scale Engine, which will allow you to embed the stream right into your church's website. And the advantage of doing that is you're not sending people to this other platform, and you also don't have to worry about any of the content restrictions that they may or may not have. You don't have to worry if they agree or disagree with your message. You own it, and you're driving traffic to your own website. Scale Engine will handle all of that for you. And if you wanted to take it one step further, you could do something like Owncast to where you would host that end yourself. Hopefully that answers your question. Again, 855-450-NOAH's number to join us, 855-450-6624, the email live@asknoahshow.com. Brian writes in, says, hey guys, I absolutely love the show. I'm working on building a website for myself to promote my skills and my services. Do Noah or Steve have any web platforms that they like? And if so, which one? I have some experience with HTML, but not much. Steve, do you have a website at all?
I don't have a website. If I was going to do this, I probably would hack something in JavaScript, but
okay.
Don't take my advice for that. There are plenty of frameworks out there. So if you're not looking to make a project out of it to learn something yourself, I would say, at least to start out, there's all kinds of stuff out there that will help you get something simple up. I know that Hugo is one of the ones that gets recommended a lot for static website generation. You could do WordPress. Like there's a ton of places out there that will do that kind of hosting. I guess it depends on what exactly you need out of your website, and that will determine how flashy or not you need it to be.
855-450-NOAH. That's 855-450-6624. Email live@asknoahshow.com. So I'm gonna agree with Steve on Hugo. If you're looking for a project and you want to dig in and learn something, maybe JavaScript is a way to go. If you're just looking for an easy way to get a website off the ground, go hugo.io. They have templates that make it really easy. You don't have to know HTML. You can use Markdown, or you can just look at what they have and do a monkey see, monkey do. You can also join us in our interactive Mumble room. You can join mumble.minddrip1.com. Naylor joins us. Welcome in, sir. Psst, your line is, I'm going to feed the genie. Naylor, do we have you?
Oh, sorry.
Hi.
Yes. Yeah, sorry about that. Your phone line is actually down. I just tried to call it again, and it says, I'm sorry, we're currently not on the air.
What's your question? Mumble is an ideal way to get a hold of us anyway.
My question is, so according to your interview with the JMP.chat guy 2 episodes ago, I went ahead and took the plunge and created me an account, and so far so good, except I can't get LinPhone to work. And that's how he says he talks all day on the phone, and I don't know what I'm missing, and I thought you said you did it. Can you point me in a direction?
Yeah, I can actually. So LinPhone can be kind of weird to set up the first time, right? So part of it is they're not terribly explicit on what they mean by username, or what the user ID is, right? So are they talking about the phone number? Are they talking about the JMP username? Are they so there's a lot of it's not terribly clear right off the bat. So what you need to do, have you set up your SIP credentials?
Well, that's something else. Aren't I supposed to have like a chat with a bunch of commands in it?
Yes.
In my Chiagram app?
Yes.
I have the snicket.chat folder. There's nothing under commands. It's like they've all disappeared.
Okay, so what you're looking for is in the Chiogram app, you should see chiogram.com. And you'll know that you're talking to the Chiogram bot because if you place a question mark, you're going to immediately get responded with a list of commands that you can run. You could also run info as the command, and the bot's going to respond back and say, your account is active, here's how much money is on your account, here's your phone number, and here's what your renewal is per month. So how did you add a payment method? You obviously did that through the bot, yeah?
Well, I haven't added a payment method yet. I'm on the 1 month free trial thing.
Okay. So that's your first step, is to establish communication with the bot, which is essentially Cheogram.com is the bot you're looking for. Once you have established that, what you'll do is you'll run the reset SIP account. And what that will do is it will give you a SIP username and password. And my guess is if you had that information, it'll give you a domain to use to connect to a SIP server. It'll give you a SIP username. It'll give you a SIP password. And from there, I suspect it would be easy runnings for you to plug that information into LinPhone. But I'm thinking that's the piece that you're missing, is you need that SIP information.
Okay. So I apparently maybe deleted the chat with the bot, and you said that's just Cheogram.com, so I can just add that as a chat back?
Yeah, you can. The easiest thing to do, if I were you, Naylor, what I would do is I would go to what would I do? I would do something that causes the bot to send me a message. Do they have do they have Snicket have a web interface? Maybe in addition?
I'm not sure. I did start a chat with them when I was having trouble getting a game to work, or Gaijim, because I kept mistyping my password. And I pulled my password out, and I found all that info before, and I was given a SIP address with a long number and @jmp.cbc.
Yep.
I got all that. I plugged all those credentials into LinPhone, and nothing happens. I get an error. So is there another better SIP desktop app you might recommend then? I'm not committed to LinPhone.
I would tell you, so that there's a couple of them. LinPhone is probably the best one if you're looking for the open source go-to, works out of the box, that kind of thing. And I suspect the issue with, if it's not working when you're plugging that information in, is almost certainly the SIP credentials. You might, if you're looking for a more polished experience, you might check out Zoiper, Zoiper. So
I've used it in the past. Okay.
Yeah. So they're not, they're proprietary, not open source. So there's that. However, it does a phenomenal job of making it real easy to understand. This is the username, this is the password, this is the domain. You're not guessing at anything. All of the fields are very explicit and easy to operate.
Okay, well, I'll work on getting the bot talking to me again, and I guess I'll just keep playing around with LinPhone. I did use another one that he recommended even in the interview. However, it didn't work good at answering the phone. I could make phone calls with it, and everything sounded fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
But when the phone would ring and I would hit the button on the computer, nothing would happen. It would not connect. It would hang up. And they even said something about they're still working on that, and I don't remember the name of that app.
Yeah. So and I would tell you too, the most reliable way to get incoming calls is through XMPP, so through the Cheogram app. SIP works really, really well for outgoing. The downside there is if you're trying to do everything through the desktop, obviously you have to use SIP because LinPhone doesn't support XMPP, and Gajim technically supports it, but there's a plugin that you have to install, and it gets complicated quickly. So hopefully that answers your questions. Again, we'll entertain those questions live at AskNoahShow.com or by calling 855-450-NOAH, 855-450-6624, the email live at AskNoahShow.com.
From the Linux Newswire newsroom, this is the Week in Review with JT.
For the week of July 25th, 2023, here's the Linux and open source news. The Linux 6.4 kernel has been released. Intel's new Arc driver in Linux boosts gaming performance by 11%. The Exodia OS team has recently updated their customized Arch-based distro for security testing. Proxmox Virtual Environment 8 is out, and other releases are pzip 9.3, Darktable 4.4, Ardor 7.5, and FirewallD 2.0. GitLab has expanded its open source partner community with the addition of the Open Group. In security news, security researchers have discovered a sophisticated attack campaign that exploits a custom open source modified version of OpenSSH to target Linux-based systems and Internet of Things devices. In AI news, Databricks has agreed to buy Mosaic ML, a generative AI specialist that just released its MPT-30, an open source LLM model, and claims that it can outperform GPT-3. Integrated Healthcare has released Robin AI, an open source GitHub project that automatically reviews GitHub pull requests, providing a score, 0 to 100, suggested improvements, and sample code for improvement. And lastly, in hardware news, there's Dingo. Dingo was created as a capstone engineering product for the Bachelor of Robotics and Mechatronics Engineering at Monash University by students Nathan Ferguson and Alexander Calvert. Dingo is a quadruped robot intended for research and educational purposes. It resembles Boston Dynamics' Spot, but at a small scale and a tiny fraction of the price. With a 3D printed body and a Raspberry Pi as its computer, it is fully open source and well documented to allow you to fork it.
Mike McGrath, he is the Vice President of Core Platform Engineering at Red Hat and a guest this hour on the Ask Noah show. Mike, welcome into the show.
Hey, it's great to be here.
Glad to have you. So the internet has kind of been in a stir since a blog post you made. I'm going to ask you to take us back to the beginning, to the original blog post. What was the original goal of Red Hat? What was the overall message that you all were trying to communicate, and how was it initially received?
Yeah, I have to admit, I was surprised at how it was initially received, but basically I wrote a blog post that said that we were no longer going to publish our sources to git.centos.org. And so for those that don't know what that is, when we produce a RHEL release, in addition to getting all the source ready and all the builds ready and getting that stuff all out to our customers, we had also gone another step to basically debrand or take all of the Red Hat references out of the code, put them into nice source RPM packages that could then be rebuilt, and we put them on the git.centos.org site. So anybody that wanted to rebuild them could do that. And we basically decided that we were going to stop doing that. And so we made a note and we put it out there. It was pretty straightforward. And the other side of that was that we've still got CentOS Stream, which is very popular, and people have been using it. We've been using it with our partners. It's not exactly what CentOS was, but it's something different, and we've been finding it very useful. Our partners have been finding it very useful, and the community has actually been able to engage with us there. And the reaction was very swift and immediate. We knew that some of the rebuilders out there would notice that this code wasn't getting updated. But because of Twitter and everything else, I think they figured this out within about 2 hours and had started, talking about what they might want to do. And Red Hat is killing rebuilders. And there was a pretty stark, very negative reaction to what was going on there. And for me, I think I underestimated the response in two ways. Number one was I am really surprised by the amount of conviction so many people have about the GPL, which appears to be something that we as an industry have kind of forgotten how it behaves. There were plenty of people out there that weren't even defending Red Hat, but were defending the GPL. And so that was one thing that was surprising. There was just a ton of discussion after my first blog post about what the GPL says it does, what it does and doesn't do, all of that. And I think the second thing that I guess I didn't realize was that, as far as I know, none of the rebuilders actually went over to look at CentOS Stream and tried to build it there. They all looked at other things. One of them said, well, we'll get our sources from Oracle, and some of them started looking at the subscription service and other things. It didn't occur to me that none of them would actually go and look at CentOS Stream, which is the same place that we build RHEL from. And so I think those two things combined led to we'll call it a very strong response on the internet.
So if I can, help me understand this. So you've moved the source code from Red Hat proper over to CentOS Stream. You can still get access to the Red Hat source code if you're a Red Hat customer and you're paying for a subscription. You can log in and get it that way. But outside of that, whereas you were previously uploading debranded Red Hat source code to the CentOS Git repository, now that's being handled differently.
It is. Well, for all intents and purposes, yes. We'd always, for a couple of years now, we've had both CentOS Stream and the Git CentOS.org Git repo, and we basically just turned that last one off. Now, I don't want to be disingenuous. This does make it harder to rebuild RHEL. There are tags and branches and things that you would expect to find in the CentOS Stream Git source that aren't there. But the code to build, if you wanted to build a rebuild of some kind of RHEL, the code is there. We have it all out there. We aren't asking rebuilders to do anything we don't do. But speaking from experience, it's pretty hard to go do that. And Red Hat has decided that we're not going to do that anymore. And that was what that first blog post was about.
Okay, since you opened the door, what is the rationale for making it more difficult for rebuilders to come in and recompile your source code and release it as a different product?
Well, that was the nature of the second blog post, which went out on Monday, yesterday. And in this one, I had a transparent conversation about what we thought. And I really do mean it. At the start of that blog post, I went for a very long walk, just, as you do. My mind was pretty occupied over the last several days with the strong backlash. And I wanted to put to words what was on my mind. And so I wrote a blog post and had some trusted stakeholders at Red Hat review it for me to make sure the tone and messaging was right. And then we sent it. And in that blog post, we outlined several things. One of which was specifically targeted at the rebuilders, which is that Red Hat, we no longer find any value in having a rebuilder. I'm not saying that other people may not find value in a rebuilder, but for us at Red Hat, we don't, and therefore we don't see the need to go out of our way to do all that work, debranding and getting it ready and making sure that we're not accidentally shipping embargoes out and all this other stuff, just so somebody can rebuild it. And so yeah, go ahead.
Well, I guess my question is, so in the past, you've obviously found value in that, insofar as you went out of your way. In fact, in your blog post, you explicitly talk about Red Hat's history in doing that. And I guess my question to you would be, what changed?
I think there were a couple of things that changed. One is that we've learned a lot in the last decade or more of working in open source. I think that there's this mistakenly accepted conclusion that a downstream rebuild of RHEL generates RHEL experts and generates RHEL sales. And the fact is, when it plays out, we have not actually found that. And you got to keep in mind, we have tons of free offerings already. We've got Fedora, we've got CentOS Stream, we've got multiple actual RHEL proper offerings that are also free of cost. And so getting RHEL or one of our other offerings, that's never been the issue. And so I think just learning more and having an opinion at Red Hat of how that all plays out was one thing. And I think the other part too is after the CentOS Stream and original CentOS Linux announcement, we had several other rebuilders sort of pop up. And we paid a lot of attention to this, and we just decided that they're not providing any value beyond a free RHEL offering, which is what we also already provide. We would rather have them using all of RHEL instead of just this kind of rebuild of RHEL. And I think one of the core arguments that I've started making more this week is this. I think a lot of people are in an uproar, and they're saying they're in an uproar about the free is in freedom aspect of this. Oh, we want the code, we demand the code. The fact is, the code is all out there. None of the code that is in RHEL is private. We send all of our code upstream, almost always to upstream proper first if they'll take it. Some upstreams don't want to take our new patches to their, at that point, very old code, sometimes 5 or 10 years old. That is not what they're arguing about. They're arguing about the free as in beer part of this, which is they want the promise that Red Hat is making about that code, which is that we will pay engineers and program managers and everybody else to track several releases. We've got 14 different kernels right now. We will track all of these releases and we will keep them all up to date for a period of 10 years. And that is what they want. They want that promise. the code will be fine. Red Hat could vanish tomorrow and all of the code would still be out there. So I really don't think it's about the code. I think what they want is that Red Hat promise, and that is a service that we provide. And in the process of providing that service, we make sure all of the code that we generate is upstream. And we stand by that. I don't think that this argument that Red Hat has somehow gone closed source holds water, because it just doesn't play out. But if you think that the GPL states that you should get any open source product free of charge, I don't think the GPL says that.
I wanted to give you a chance to respond to the idea that open source is all about standing on the shoulders of giants, and that Red Hat seems to be perfectly willing to stand on the shoulders of giants, but not let anybody stand on their own shoulders. You mentioned the source code and recompiling it. Aside from tags and stuff like that, the source code is still out there. Like, if I wanted to, I could go out and figure out where the code is and go compile it. Is that still true?
It is, yeah.
So then, can you respond to the idea that Red Hat wants to stand on top of the shoulders of other giants in the open source industry, but are not particularly interested having anybody else stand on top of their shoulders?
I love this question, and this gets at to the heart of the open source ecosystem and the open source community. If you want to go fork Fedora or fork CentOS Stream and make significant changes to it, or even minor changes to it, go do it. Come compete with us on a fair playing field. I love it. We've got plenty of competition out there already. SUSE, Canonical, Microsoft's in the game now with options, whether they're commercially competing with us or just from a community point of view competing with us. That's great. I actually just saw an announcement recently about SUSE. They've got user space live patching. Kudos, you guys. We don't have that. It's driving the industry forward. But if you just want to take our code, put your logo on it, and by definition of your own mission, make no changes of any kind, and then on top of that, you want to go sell support for that? I don't know. That seems shady. That's what I've got a real problem with. Different people at Red Hat have different opinions about some of this stuff. I actually don't mind the idea of a free rebuild. I kind of accept that as the cost of doing business in open source. But when people take those rebuilds and start going beyond that, I've got a problem with that, because that is a real threat to the ecosystem, because the people that are actually fixing the code and producing those patches, like, we pay them to do that. And so I think that from a business point of view, that is where some of this conflict is coming from. And so, yeah, you want to come, stand on the shoulders of giants, and you want to take our code and fork it and make it better and all kinds of other stuff. We will see you upstream. I will welcome you with open arms, and we will work with you to commit those patches upstream, and you can help us commit our patches upstream. That's the way it normally works. But again, if your sole mission is to be an exact copy of something else, you haven't actually contributed anything to the community at large. And at this point, I think that they are now taking away from the work that Red Hat is doing.
Person in the chat room says, why not start with explanations that came from Mike McGrath's second blog post on the issue? It felt to me, at least, that it was much more transparent than the first post.
Yeah, no, that's a fair comment. Listen, even inside at Red Hat, everybody loves to armchair quarterback what message we should have had after they already know how everybody is going to respond. And so, like, I can't predict the future. I honestly, like I said earlier, we almost didn't send an update at all, but we put together a blog post at least stating what we were going to do in case somebody had questions. I grossly underestimated the response on that. I mentioned earlier in your first question why, a lot of confusion around the GPL. Mm-hmm. And I'm really surprised they didn't go look at CentOS Stream as a place to rebuild. I think if that had happened, it would have been a much lesser notice. As far as I know, none of the rebuilders had said they're going to close up shop at this point. I mean, maybe they're still figuring out what to do. But yeah, I think the other thing too was the second blog post, I think, came out of a lot of soul searching and discussion. Red Hat has never had a blog post that kind of combines the business side of our thoughts with the open source side of our thoughts quite in that way before. And I think that's why it struck such a tone, because there is room for both, but it is a balance.
Why not act immediately as opposed to keeping it going for RHEL 9, at least until the version reached maintenance support?
When you say act immediately, what do you mean?
So why not make the change immediately as opposed to going for RHEL 9? We did
make the change immediately. So at the moment, for all of with the exception of CentOS 7, which is going to continue on its normal life and end sometime in 2024. At the moment, none of RHEL 8 and none of RHEL 9's quote unquote downstream code is going to be in the git.centos.org space. Any code that was there will remain, but we're not pushing any updates to it.
Okay.
And for both CentOS Stream 8 and CentOS Stream 9, that's where you can find the code. And of course, just like I said, in the customer portal for customers that have a login, they can also get the code from there for GPL reasons.
There seems to be a difference in your mind in between Red Hat customers and downstream rebuilds. As it relates to your paying customers, Red Hat customers who have an active support agreement, are they entitled to the source code under the licensing agreement? And do you believe that you're meeting that requirement?
Yes, they are. They can get it. They can get the full code anytime they want. And that is theirs to get. And I want to be clear. Let's be very clear, just in case we head down this path. RHEL, Red Hat Enterprise Linux, that is a product. CentOS Stream, some of those downstream rebuilders, Fedora, those are projects. And that is a very important distinction for us at Red Hat. And so, if you are a customer of Red Hat, or even a non-paying customer of Red Hat, you can go get your 16 free developer subscriptions for any individual right now. Can go get those. I use them at home; they're fine, and you can get the source that way as well.
How has Red Hat navigated the use of GPL software now that they aren't making their source available to everybody?
Actually, the way that this may be a surprise to some people because they made some assumptions, but we haven't actually changed the way that we comply with the GPL as part of this. Git.centos.org was never part of our GPL compliance plan. It was always part of our rebuilder plan. And so we had it when we thought rebuilders were useful. And now that we don't think we don't see any use in it anymore, we're not going to do it. But our GPL compliance requirements haven't changed as part of this.
Are you able to discuss or go into the details of timing? When did this start to become an idea inside of Red Hat, and when was it, I guess more or less, when did the thought of this start?
So I think the problem of rebuilders predates my role where I am at Red Hat. I actually was originally a Fedora contributor and volunteer prior to becoming a Red Hat employee. And so for as long as I've been in any sort of leadership or architecture position at Red Hat, we've talked about the downstream rebuilders. And at some point in time, there's somebody, this is before my time, somebody said, hey, we've got the CentOS project is in a bit of a jam right now. Back then, and I don't remember all the timelines and everything, but I seem to remember thinking somebody ran off with a bunch of money and then showed back up again, and it was taking a really long time to get builds out. I forget how that played out. You can go Google it. But at the time, there were some problems in keeping that infrastructure up and going, and so Red Hat came in and sponsored them, and it's been fine. We still have a lot of those CentOS contributors are Red Hat. Some of them are still working on CentOS, and some of them have moved on to other things at Red Hat. And around the time that we created, but the problem is, I'd say maybe 4 or 5 years ago ish, we realized that the CentOS community that we were hoping would be a thriving thing wasn't really like the Fedora community. The Fedora community is great. They do plenty of stuff that bugs me. Looking at you, whoever put Btrfs as the default, but they're a community project. They're allowed to do that. And we have a great relationship with everybody in Fedora, and Fedora has just been killing it lately. But when we looked at CentOS, the whole thing was users. It was all users. Now, there were a few SIGs, and there were some board members that were doing amazing things and rebuilds. I do not want to discredit that work. But just in terms of the numbers, the number of contributors compared to the number of users was extremely lopsided. And so we kind of realized this is not a healthy community, and that's where CentOS Stream came from. And I think by all accounts, people appreciate and like CentOS Stream for what it is. It's a place to come and contribute to the next version of RHEL. It's great for CI environments. It's great for just casual use. I've got it on my laptop. It's been working fine. But that finally was a place where people could actually contribute to Red Hat, because part of the way we had CentOS set up was pretty useless. If you had a bug, you didn't really even have a way to open up a bug against CentOS. You had to go open it upstream in maybe Fedora, and if you're lucky, a few years later, it would be fixed, because that was, Red Hat sells support for that kind of thing. If you want us to fix your bug, you got to pay for support. Well, flash forward a couple years, and that was kind of when we decided that a downstream rebuild of RHEL is not useful. I don't think we had the clarity that my blog post had this week, but that's basically what it was. We didn't see any reason to do it anymore. And so that was a huge blow up, huge big news, lots of people very upset. And that spawned these new downstream rebuilds. We decided, let's see how it plays out. And we've got people like Alma and Rocky have popped up, and Oracle's been around forever. And there's some other smaller ones that popped up, and we're watching them, and that's fine. But really, more over the last couple of months, we saw some things that we thought were being done in bad faith. Not necessarily from the technical side of some of these organizations, but more from we'll say the money-making side of these organizations. And we decided to get together and figure out what to do about it. And we came up with the announcement that I released last week and kind of doubled down on with more context this week. And so that's where we landed.
Can I ask, what things were you seeing that gave you pause in the way of I think, as you put it, on the money-making side?
I'm just going to say it's shenanigans, and I don't want to throw anybody under the bus. They were out trying to make a quick buck and do what they do. But we had a problem with it. And so I'll just leave it at that.
Can you speak to the threat to open source companies of rebuilding code without adding any value or changing it in any way, right? Like, there's this idea of, we talk about standing on the shoulder of giants. That's one thing to say, hey, this giant built this thing. Man, that's a really useful starting point for me to start my thing. So I stand on the giant and then I build my own thing. Even if my own thing is a teeny tiny thing compared to the original giant, it's a thing. And it's possible because you're allowing me to stand on your shoulder. So I think we can all kind of understand that analogy. When we're literally talking about duplicating the giant after one person has paid to put the giant up, seems like there might be a threat there to the business model. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, this was something in thinking about the entire ecosystem and thinking about what was really bothering me about all of this, I came to realize that any highly successful company or product could be at threat from downstream rebuilds. And it's not like any one of our downstream rebuilds has been particularly wildly successful. That's not the point. Because the point is the end game. What is the value of them? And I'm sure there's a lot of people in the community say, well, I got introduced because of CentOS, or I got introduced because of this or that, or I can't abide by your terms, or I just don't want to give you an email to be in your Red Hat system. That's fine, but Red Hat is not a total global domination company. Red Hat Linux in particular has always been about choice. And so I think, going back to the core question here, there's plenty of choices out there, but people wanted RHEL. They wanted the promise of RHEL. A lot of them, not everybody, but a lot of them. But they didn't want to pay for RHEL, and they didn't want to use anything else. And so I'm not saying there's not demand there, but I'm also saying that we don't, Red Hat's not trying to solve everybody's problems all the time. And we've been working really, really hard over the last several years to make sure that RHEL is more available than ever to more people. We have UBI, for example, which is freely redistributable. And once it's on a RHEL system, it's also fully supported. It's kept up to date. It has a whole lot of RHEL in it. It's not the whole RHEL, but it's a lot of it. We have our developer programs. We have our academic programs. We have our RHEL for open source infrastructure programs. We have all of these things to make actual proper RHEL available and usable by people. But there's also there's certainly a class of people that maybe they don't like Red Hat for whatever reason, but they want all the benefits that Red Hat brings. Or like I said, maybe they just don't want to provide an email address. There's like 24 Linux distros out there that meet your needs. I don't know why they feel entitled to a downstream rebuild that has Red Hat's promise on it, but they don't want to actually participate in the system that makes those contributions and makes that long life cycle possible. Because the fact is, a lot of upstreams don't. They don't want to do that work. Upstreams don't want to deal with. Can you imagine what a 9-year-old Docker would be like right now? Customers don't want to deal with these, or I'm sorry, upstreams don't want to deal with these long life cycles. We do it, and there's value in it. And so, it's a cold hard truth, but that's what it is. And so I think it represents a real threat to any open source company that becomes successful enough that someone will simply take their code, do an exact rebuild of it with different logos, and then sell support for it and try to make a quick buck. I think that workflow and business model, while okay according to the licenses and standards, is not good for the ecosystem. And so we drew a line in the sand here. And I think time will tell whether or not we're right on this or not. I think we are.
So, Mike, I'd like you to step back a little bit. I heard you talk about the different ways you can get RHEL, and some of the people in our chat room have been asking things about what does this mean for people that are using the downstreams in the CI process?
For people that are using downstream rebuilds in their CI process, I'm not sure. You'd have to go talk to them. We actually still don't know what those downstreams are going to be doing. But in terms of CI, CentOS Stream is great for a CI environment because you'll get to find out things before we've broken them. You can even report them before they break in RHEL. Like if we've broken something in CentOS Stream, let us know so that we can fix it before it hits RHEL proper. And then also on the, you should definitely go and talk with, if you're using RHEL in a production environment, you should definitely go and talk with your account managers and things about what options exist for you on production versus non-production environments. A lot of those non-production environments are in virtual machines. There are tons of ways to get extremely cheap or free RHEL, especially in non-production environments. Hopefully none of the salespeople are listening in, but if somebody has sold you a bunch of production licenses and you're using them all over the place, including on your workstation and in your staging and development environments, there may be better options for you, and you should probably go discuss that with them.
It seems to me that I recall at some point that Red Hat makes some special accommodation for open source projects when using RHEL. Can you speak a little bit about that? We've been working really hard to make RHEL more accessible to more types of people, especially your non-traditional, people that aren't large enterprises. One of those is the Red Hat Enterprise Linux for Open Source Infrastructure program. And basically, if you're running an open source project of any kind, you can get no-cost RHEL, the same stuff everybody else uses in a real production environment, and you can use it for free. It is of no cost at all for your project. And so whether or not you're doing CI or you want to do other development or you just want a stable server to run your Git repos on, we have an option for that, and it's called ROSI. For short, ROSI, but it is the Red Hat Enterprise Linux for Open Source Infrastructure is the full name of the program.
Innovation happens in the upstream and building on the shoulders of others what open source is all about. Some people might say, well, that's true as long as they're not upstream for somebody else. And in that case, Red Hat doesn't particularly care for it. It seems like they want to be the bottom rung on the ladder and have no one else under them. Do you believe that's an accurate depiction of Red Hat? And if so, do you believe that that's in the spirit and the letter of open source?
No, I think this gets back to my comment earlier about forking versus rebuilding. If you're actually going to build, let's just say Red Hat's a giant. I'm flattered, thank you. But let's just say you're going to build on the shoulders of Red Hat. You got to go build something. You got to make it different somehow. Don't just take what we've done and put your logo on it. I think that's really, I really do feel that way. If you're going to fork us, if you're going to make some change, maybe you've got kernel optimizations that you would like to build a distro for. Go do that instead. That at least is something that we could work on. You know, that's something that at least it benefits the community. But if the sole mission of a downstream rebuild is to be exactly like Red Hat, I just don't get it. I'm not sold that that is valuable for Red Hat.
This is obviously going to come up, so I'm just going to ask it directly. What role, if any, did IBM have in the decision?
Not a single person from IBM has come and discussed this with me either before or after any of my blog posts. There you go. That's as definitive as I can get.
Okay. So it is literally about Red Hat trying to do what's right for the people that you guys employ, that put in a lot of hard hours and a lot of hard work to develop a really solid product. Let me just ask this. If there was a rebuilder that wanted to, could they sign up for, a subscription, get access to the source code, download the Red Hat source code and go that route? I mean, it's going to be more work because you're compiling it yourself and you're going to have to do all the debranding yourself, but it's a harder row to hoe, so to speak. But is it possible?
They could. I think that they would find, if they attempted to continue to use if they continue to use their subscription, I think that they would find they'd have difficulties with that. But, I don't really know what else to say about it. There's an aspect there that, as far as I know, nobody's tried it. But I would not encourage them to do that. We've got CentOS Stream. Go build it from the place that we build it from. We're not asking rebuilders to do anything that we don't do ourselves.
Okay. So essentially, if I've understood this conversation correctly, it could surmise it to say Red Hat is still building code out in the open. It's done over on CentOS Stream. Once it gets solidified there, you and any other rebuilders are welcome to pick from that pool, so to speak, and customize to your needs. Red Hat is going to continue to do that the same way you guys have been doing it for the last few decades, which is you take the code, you solidify it, you wrap an incredible support infrastructure around it, you sell that support infrastructure and the value add to your clients and help them build in solutions. When people need experts, you pair them with the experts. You're just asking other people now to go to the same pool to get source code that you guys are doing with Red Hat. Would that be an accurate summation of our conversation?
Yeah, I think that's accurate. And you mentioned CentOS Stream. I just want to make sure this is clear because there's so much confusion around CentOS Stream. It used to be that CentOS was a clone of RHEL back in the day, or a rebuild of RHEL. It's probably more accurate to say these days that RHEL is a rebuild of CentOS Stream at this point. And so, CentOS Stream is changing every day, sometimes several times a day. It is not a place where we're doing our tests. People say it's a beta or an alpha of RHEL, whatever. No, when our coders get done with code and it makes it through CI and we think that it's ready to be released to customers, we put it in CentOS Stream first. And then every 6 months, we release what CentOS Stream has, and that becomes RHEL. That's basically how we put RHEL together. And so, sure, if you're trying to build a rebuild, maybe what is on the head of the GitLab won't match what was in RHEL, but it's a Git repo. One of the older commits has what you're looking for. That's fine. And even more than that, if you find some bug or if you find something in CentOS Stream, if you've got some application or something that worked in RHEL and suddenly it's not working in CentOS Stream, that means we're going to have a bug in RHEL soon. Open a bug. Let us know so we can fix it. It doesn't happen a ton, but it does happen, just like we release bugs in RHEL too. But that is just how close the relationship is between CentOS Stream and RHEL. It's not like Fedora. Fedora is a different beast with its own lifecycle and everything else. CentOS Stream is inextricably tied to our development process. If we had a major outage in CentOS Stream, we would not be able to release RHEL anymore. It is in the critical path for how we develop RHEL.
Is there a plan to give rebuilders a path to migrate from existing rebuild installs to CentOS Stream?
We have a migration tool. I know that from CentOS that works. I don't remember if we've got a support for Rocky to RHEL or for I think Oracle to RHEL works. So you can come and look, and now we've got if you happen to have a large environment and you're done with the free version, you want full support, that is definitely an area that we have a tool for that will come and work. That's fully supported, and we welcome you to try that.
The End Beta in the chat room asks, from the view of Red Hat, what is Red Hat selling when they sell Red Hat Enterprise Linux? What is the value proposition of that product, and what separates Red Hat Enterprise Linux from the product of CentOS Stream and the sum of the contributions from the community in Red Hat?
So just to reemphasize this, Red Hat Enterprise Linux is a product, and CentOS Stream is a project. And so with Red Hat Enterprise Linux, the product, what you're buying is the support. You're buying access to our services, to our portal. You're buying access to the ecosystem that we have, all the certifications that go into RHEL. Red Hat doesn't certify any of our community projects. We do all of our certification work on RHEL proper. And that includes CentOS Stream. CentOS Stream does not have any certifications as well. You're also buying access to insights, several services that we've been putting up, getting access to our support crew, all of our documentation, all that stuff, a lot of which is available to you even at the free tier. And so you get all of that. With CentOS Stream, you just kind of get the bits and you're on your own. And so that's the key difference between them.
What kind of impact do you think this will have on some of the broader ecosystem, like an Oracle Linux? Do you think there's going to be much of any change? I'm not obviously asking you to kind of project for them necessarily, but I'm wondering whether we think that there's a change in the dynamic between Red Hat and the competitors, or whether or not Oracle specifically was even a consideration when looking at this decision.
The truthful answer is I don't know. I'm kind of waiting to see what they want to do. You know, we don't control those communities. They've got very capable people and engineers that can go and try to do a build. If I could wave a magic wand, what I would have them do is come join CentOS Stream, create a SIG of some kind, and build some kind of differentiated offering that Red Hat and CentOS Stream don't already have. I don't know what that would be. Maybe it's a new, highly optimized device, edge device kind of thing. I don't know. Whatever they may come up with, I don't know. But that's probably not going to happen. I suspect that they will continue to look at some way to be as close to a free Red Hat as possible, and we'll figure out what to do, if anything, at that time.
Mike McGrath, he is the Vice President of Core Platform Engineering at Red Hat, and a guest this hour on the Ask Noah Show. Mike, I really appreciate your time. I'm sure this past week has been relatively stressful, being on the front lines of the internet, so to speak. So we appreciate you taking the time and being able to give answers directly to people on questions that are happening at Red Hat. We wish you all the best of luck, and we'll get you back on the program soon.
Thanks. I appreciate the time, and it's been great to help get the message out in voices instead of blog posts. Appreciate it.
The music in our ears means we're out of time. I thank you for joining us. You can follow us on Twitter. I'm at Colonel Linux. He's at Linux Ovens. The show at Ask Noah Show. We record the show every Tuesday at 6 p.m. Central. AskNoahShow.com. You can get the show notes by going to podcast.asknoahshow.com. There you'll find all of the resources that we used to put the show together, as well as past episodes, which you can download at your leisure. We'll be back next Tuesday, 6 p.m. Central at AskNoahShow.com. Have a good week.